China's President Xi Jinping just threw his full weight behind Vladimir Putin's Ukraine strategy, and it happened just days before Putin's scheduled meeting with Donald Trump. This isn't just diplomatic small talk. This is Xi positioning China as Putin's most powerful ally, while Trump desperately tries to broker peace in Ukraine. The timing couldn't be more revealing, and what it means for the war could change everything. On August 8th, during what sources describe as a crucial phone call between Beijing and Moscow, Xi Jinping told Putin something that should send chills down the spine of every Ukrainian supporter. The Chinese leader expressed his pleasure at seeing Russia maintain contact with the United States to advance what he called a political resolution of the Ukraine crisis. But here's the kicker. This wasn't just diplomatic courtesy. This was Xi giving Putin his blessing to negotiate from a position of strength, while China continues its shadow support for Russia's war machine.
President Donald Trump at the White House just moments ago saying that he will soon announce details of a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
We're going to be announcing later on, we're going to have a meeting with Russia. Start off with Russia, and we'll announce a location. I think the location will be a very popular one for a lot of reasons.
Now, those comments come the same exact day that Trump's self-imposed deadline was set to expire. He told President Putin to come to the table to end the war in Ukraine, prepare to face punishing sanctions. We start things off with CNN's Kristen Holmes from the North Lawn in the White House. Kristen, we are standing by for more details on this meeting that is supposed to be announced later today. But the president had a lot to say about the dynamics at that event. What else did he say?
The call came at Putin's request, according to Chinese state media, and it reveals something terrifying about the current geopolitical chess game. Putin needed Xi's approval before sitting down with Trump. Think about that for a moment. The Russian president, who claims to be an independent leader fighting Western imperialism, actually called his Chinese counterpart to get permission for peace talks. This tells us everything we need to know about who's really calling the shots in this so-called partnership. What makes this even more alarming is the timing. Trump has been pushing hard for an end to the Ukraine war, setting ultimatums and threatening massive tariffs on countries that continue buying Russian oil, including China. August 8th was actually Trump's self-imposed deadline for Russia to make progress toward peace or face devastating economic consequences. Yet here we see Xi and Putin coordinating their strategy just as that deadline expired, essentially thumbing their nose at American pressure.
Was so frustrated that Vladimir Putin was not slowing down with his invasion of Ukraine, continuing to push forward on the front lines after he put a 50-day deadline. So instead, he gave them 10 days for a ceasefire or face very, very strict sanctions, and also have new sanctions on people that are buying stuff from Russia, like China and India. The sanctions on India went into effect this morning. They were named this morning, another 25%. That gives them 50%. So it's not just pressure from the United States to come to the table. Vladimir Putin might be getting calls from some of the other superpowers in the world, the leaders of India, the leaders of China. Hey, cut this out because this war is now costing us a lot of money. And we know that Steve Witkoff, I've been told by a senior administration official.
The pressure Trump has been applying isn't just rhetoric. Sanctions on India went into effect that morning, and the threat extends to any nation continuing to purchase Russian oil. Putin may be facing pressure not just from the United States, but also from superpowers whose economies are being affected by these war-related sanctions. During their conversation, Xi made it crystal clear that China would maintain its stance on the need for peace talks and a diplomatic solution. But anyone who's been paying attention knows what China's version of peace looks like. It's not Ukrainian victory, it's not Russian withdrawal. It's Ukraine surrendering territory and sovereignty while Russia keeps its ill-gotten gains. Xi's support for a long-term solution to the Ukraine conflict isn't about justice. It's about legitimizing Putin's conquest.
Yes, good morning. Well, this is the Kremlin's ideal scenario, that they want to get Putin in a room with Trump, essentially alone, without Zelensky, in order to influence the US on an outcome that will be favorable to Russia. And clearly, from a Ukrainian and European point of view, that would be very worrying indeed if Trump was willing to sit down with Putin to discuss an outcome in Ukraine that didn't include Ukraine, which of course is a very different position from his predecessor, Joe Biden, who famously said, nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. And in this situation, we'd have Putin and Trump sitting down together without Ukrainian presence, without a European presence to influence the US thinking, and Russia would be able to present its view of the war and the view of any settlement to that war. So that would be very much in Russia.
The prospect of a Trump-Putin meeting without Ukraine's President Zelensky present represents the Kremlin's ideal scenario. Russia wants to influence the United States on an outcome favorable to Russia, which would be deeply concerning for Ukraine and Europe. This marks a significant departure from the previous administration's policy of nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, as it would allow Putin to present his view of the war and settlement terms without Ukrainian or European presence in the room. This was actually the second call between Xi and Putin in less than 2 months, highlighting just how closely these two authoritarian leaders are coordinating their strategies. And it's not happening in a vacuum. Putin is expected to visit China in September for events marking the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. The symbolism is intentional. Two former enemies of the West celebrating their victory over fascism while enabling a new form of authoritarianism in Europe. The economic dimension of this partnership reveals the true scale of what we're dealing with. Since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, China and Russia have dramatically bolstered their economic, trade, and security cooperation. This isn't just about buying Russian oil at discount prices. China has become Russia's economic lifeline, providing the dual-use technologies, manufacturing components, and financial mechanisms that keep Putin's war machine running. Recent evidence from Ukraine's security service paints a damning picture of this cooperation. Ukrainian officials found components from 5 Chinese companies directly embedded in Russian-built versions of Iranian Shahed drones that have been terrorizing Ukrainian cities. These aren't coincidental business dealings. These are deliberate acts of war support disguised as normal trade relations. China's response to Trump's tariff threats reveals their true priorities. When Trump threatened heavy tariffs on countries buying Russian oil, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jiakun didn't back down. Instead, he doubled down, calling Beijing's trade and energy cooperation with Russia just and legitimate. He promised that China would continue to take reasonable measures to ensure energy security based on our own national interests. Translation: China will keep funding Putin's war regardless of American pressure. What's particularly insidious about China's position is how they've managed to maintain plausible deniability while actively supporting Russia's aggression. Beijing insists it's a neutral party, regularly calling for an end to the fighting while simultaneously accusing Western countries of prolonging the conflict by arming Ukraine. This is classic authoritarian doublespeak, claiming to want peace while enabling war. China has never denounced Russia's war nor called for Russian troops to withdraw from Ukrainian territory. Many of Ukraine's allies believe Beijing has provided crucial support to Moscow, and the evidence keeps mounting. From purchasing massive quantities of Russian oil to providing manufacturing components for military equipment, China's neutrality looks a lot like active collaboration. The strategic implications of Xi's call with Putin extend far beyond Ukraine. This conversation reveals how China views the current conflict as part of a larger struggle against what they see as American hegemony. By supporting Putin's position in potential peace talks, Xi is essentially betting that Russia's aggression will succeed in weakening Western resolve and demonstrating that authoritarian powers can reshape international borders through force. Trump's approach to this crisis has been frustratingly naive. The American president has voiced growing frustration with Putin over the lack of progress toward peace, but he seems to fundamentally misunderstand the dynamics at play. Trump appears to believe he can pressure Putin into a reasonable deal through personal diplomacy and economic threats.
Just like you said, as you remember, when we worked together at the White House, anytime a foreign leader meets with the president of the United States, that's a gift. That it is Vladimir Putin that can't travel to a lot of countries because he's a criminal, and that he gets to come to the United States of America and stand next to the president of the United States is a gift. He's already received everything he needs. The question, therefore, for President Trump and his team, what are we getting in return for America's national interests, for Europe's interests, and for Ukraine's interests? And so far, the details on that are very murky. The clip you just played about swaps, you're absolutely right. He's talking about swapping Ukrainian land for Ukrainian land. He's not talking about Russian land being swapped. And I can
This meeting is an extraordinary gift to Putin, who can't travel to many countries due to being indicted as a war criminal. The question becomes what America gets in return for this diplomatic gift, especially when Putin has shown no willingness to make meaningful concessions. But Putin isn't operating as an independent actor. He's got Xi Jinping's full backing, and that changes everything. The reality is that any peace deal negotiated under current conditions will likely favor Russia's territorial gains, while legitimizing the principle that might makes right in international relations. Xi's support for a long-term solution suggests China is prepared to back Russia's position for years to come, providing the economic and diplomatic support necessary to outlast Western resolve. This partnership between Beijing and Moscow represents something unprecedented in modern history. Two nuclear-armed authoritarian powers with complementary strengths working together to challenge the post-World War II international order. Russia provides the military aggression and energy resources, while China provides the economic foundation and manufacturing capacity. Together, they form an axis of authoritarianism that threatens democratic values worldwide. The upcoming meeting between Trump and Putin, which was reportedly scheduled for August 15th in Alaska, takes on new significance in light of Xi's support. Putin won't be negotiating as a desperate leader seeking an exit from a costly war.
Some kind of ideas from Putin, and I think Putin's going to try and take advantage of this one-on-one summit with Trump to advance his agenda, to put out, a Russian peace plan or a ceasefire plan or something like that, in order then to have Trump take it to Zelensky and see if Zelensky rejects it. This is posturing to see who can look like they're more interested in peace. I still think the parties are a long way apart. I think Putin wants this meeting with Trump for two reasons. One, it legitimizes him. This man has been a pariah since February of 2022, when Russia committed unprovoked aggression against Ukraine. Now he's getting a meeting with the President of the United States to stand next to each other as equals and has to offer up nothing in return. That is the meeting right there as far as Putin's concerned. But I think he also wants to pull Trump back into his orbit. As you were saying, who's playing whom depends on kind of how you evaluate this. But I do think Putin now understands he may have pushed Trump a little bit further than he intended or than he wanted, and he needs to roll.
Putin's strategic approach involves potentially presenting a Russian peace plan or ceasefire proposal, using it to test Ukraine's response. His two main objectives are clear: gaining legitimacy after being a pariah since the 2022 invasion, and pulling Trump back into his orbit. He'll be negotiating as the military arm of a Sino-Russian partnership that has already demonstrated its willingness to challenge Western power directly. What makes this situation even more dangerous is how it plays into China's broader strategic goals. Xi Jinping has been building toward a confrontation with the United States over Taiwan, and Russia's war in Ukraine serves as a perfect testing ground for Western resolve. If Putin can successfully negotiate a favorable peace deal that allows him to keep Ukrainian territory, it sends a clear message to Beijing that military aggression can succeed against Western opposition. The economic warfare dimension of this conflict cannot be understated. Trump's threats of massive tariffs on Russian oil buyers, including China, represent an attempt to break the financial foundation of Putin's war effort. But Xi's defiant response suggests China is prepared to absorb significant economic costs to maintain their strategic partnership with Russia. This isn't just about energy security, it's about demonstrating that the Sino-Russian axis can withstand American economic pressure. The timing of Xi's call with Putin also reveals something crucial about authoritarian decision-making. These leaders don't operate independently, they coordinate, they consult, and they align their strategies to maximize pressure on democratic nations. When Xi expresses support for Putin's approach to Ukraine peace talks, he's not just offering moral support, he's promising continued material assistance for Russia's war effort. What should terrify Western policymakers is how effectively China and Russia have managed to coordinate their challenge to the international order. While the United States and its allies have struggled to maintain unity on Ukraine policy, Beijing and Moscow have deepened their cooperation across multiple domains. They've created an alternative economic system, developed military technologies together, and coordinated their diplomatic messaging to maximum effect. The September meeting between Xi and Putin in China will likely serve as another opportunity to coordinate their strategies and demonstrate their partnership to the world. The 80th anniversary of World War II's end provides perfect cover for what will essentially be a war planning session. These leaders will use the historical symbolism of defeating fascism to justify their current assault on democratic values. Trump's peace efforts, however well-intentioned, are playing directly into this authoritarian strategy. By seeking a quick diplomatic solution without addressing the fundamental power dynamics at play, Trump risks legitimizing territorial conquest and encouraging further aggression. Xi's support for Putin's negotiating position virtually guarantees that any peace deal will reward Russian aggression, while setting dangerous precedents for future conflicts. The broader implications of this Sino-Russian coordination extend far beyond Ukraine. If these authoritarian powers can successfully challenge Western resolve in Europe, they'll be emboldened to pursue similar strategies in the South China Sea, Taiwan, and other contested regions. Xi's backing of Putin's Ukraine strategy isn't just about one conflict. It's about establishing a new world order where authoritarian powers can reshape borders through force. As we watch these events unfold, it's crucial to understand that we're not just witnessing a regional conflict in Eastern Europe. We're seeing the emergence of a coordinated challenge to democratic values and international law by two of the world's most powerful authoritarian regimes. Xi Jinping's support for Putin's Ukraine strategy represents a fundamental shift in global power dynamics, and the consequences will be felt for generations to come. The question now is whether democratic nations have the resolve to stand up to this coordinated authoritarian challenge, or whether they'll allow short-term peace deals to legitimize long-term threats to freedom and democracy worldwide.